Landfall now. Fox weather storm specialist Mike Seidel is tracking the last-minute preparations for Hurricane Milton. You're in Madeira Beach, which I understand is, about 30 miles southwest of downtown Tampa. So what's it like? Well, obviously the winds are picking up since the last time I saw you.
Yeah, last time we were on the beach, we've come inland. We're not that far inland, about a block and a half from the Gulf. The Gulf is starting to get a little rougher, 2 to 3 foot swells. But the big issue with the surge and the wind is what's left from Helene, Harris. We've got piles and piles of damage. Yes, yesterday they were able to get it off Gulf Boulevard, at least in eyesight, but all these neighborhoods, I mean, miles and miles of neighborhood streets on the barrier islands look like this. Talked to someone down in the Southwest Florida area. They still have damage out there on their front driveway. But all you see here, mattresses, some of these objects are heavier, but when the surge comes in later this afternoon and this evening, this stuff is going to start floating. And then you bring in wind gusts in excess of 100 miles an hour, and then you're talking about flying projectiles. So you have the surge and those destructive waves superimposed on top. It's just a real nightmare. The one thing we don't have is additional debris or items coming out of homes, because everything in the houses and that was impacted is out on the sidewalk. So the question is, how does this look tomorrow morning when the wind and the storm is gone? Sand from the Gulf and probably debris littering the streets everywhere. It may be even tough to get around. Already we're hearing lightning and thunder. There's another marine warning off the coast for water spouts. That goes until 1 p.m. and the weather is just going to go downhill from here. The winds right now are east-northeast blowing offshore, but eventually they'll come around onshore and start to push the water in with that surge warning and the hurricane warning here at Madeira Beach. We're going to be heading for higher ground once we finish with Fox News at 1 o'clock. Harris?
I got to tell you, you told that better than I've seen anybody in terms of what's going to be in the water when that storm surge comes in. I didn't realize how loose all of those materials were. Obviously, we know there's Hurricane Helene. I mean, it's just there. They had to get out of the way. Look at that wind. And we can hear the thunder where you are as well. I mean, the water picks that up, and that's projectile, and you can't see it coming.
No, you can't. It's going to be dark when we make landfall.
Yeah.
Again, mandatory evacuation, little if any traffic today on the roadways. Everybody's hunkered down. We're going to be in a very safe spot away from anything that can fly in and hit us, and have coverage for you this evening and tonight on Fox News and Fox Weather.
Good. I'm glad you're taking cover, and it sounds like a lot of people have gotten out of the way and heeded those mandatory evacuations. That's a blessing. Mike Seidel.
One more thing.
Oh, yes.
I got one more thing, real quick. I just heard the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, the main bridge from one peninsula down to the south. They just closed that, and there's 3 other bridges in Tampa Bay, Harris, that are going to be closed if they're not already very shortly.
Okay.
Those are the 4 main routes over Tampa Bay. So Sunshine Skyway Bridge is now closed. Okay,
I'm writing that down. You're right. They're not going to have very many choices to get out of there if you're on one of the sides of those bridges, because if they're closing them down, then what do you do? So the time is urgent.
Hurricane, and that's where we find our weather storm specialist, Mike Seidel. He is live there in Madeira Beach, Florida for us. So, Mike, how are folks preparing there, and what are you feeling right now? Obviously, some strong winds already.
Yes, indeed. The winds are really starting to pick up. I don't want my hat to end up over in Houston. The Gulf of Mexico is about a block and a half away. We're going to be heading to higher ground in a safer location right after this live shot. So the surge, Sandra, is going to come in here later this evening and tonight. And we're expecting here an 8 to 12 foot surge, higher than they saw with Helene. The major issue in these areas, they have nearly enough time to clean up from Helene. Look at the debris. And this is what you see. Street after street, block after block, just piles of debris. So we bring the surge in first, along with increasing winds. Everything starts to float that can. And you can float a car with a couple of feet of water. So this stuff is going to float around. And then you throw in, on top of that, the 100-mile-an-hour plus wind gust and the large destructive waves. And there goes my hat. Well, it's going to stay in the water for now. I'll get it. Just gives you an idea of the gust, and we're well ahead of the landfall. So all this is going to become flying projectiles. By tomorrow morning, the wind is gone. The surge goes back into the Gulf of Mexico, and we're going to have debris everywhere on top of sand from the beaches like we had last week. Also, the threat of tornadoes. We have 4 or 5 active tornado warnings down the coast towards Fort Myers. One of those is a particularly dangerous situation. We've already had 2 confirmed touchdowns in the southern part of the state of Florida, so that's another issue. tornado watch till 9. They'll keep extending that. And we are going to have the risk of waterspouts coming on shore here, along with over a foot of rain. So all kinds of implications. But the surge and those high wind gusts with all this debris is the perfect prescription for just a nightmare. I mean, as we wake up tomorrow morning to see if we can even get around on these roads.
Yeah, indeed, and we know you're going to head to safer ground after this live shot. We hope your hat doesn't end up in Houston. Mike, incredible reporting. Thank you very much for telling their story. What a mess it already is there. And the winds that you're experiencing right now are enough to do a lot of damage. And there are much stronger winds on the way.
Hurricane Milton's northern eye wall spreading on shore should be making landfall soon. Joining us now from Madeira Beach, Florida, is Mike Seidel, Fox weather meteorologist and storm specialist. Mike.
Hey, Laura, we're in the thick of it right now. The eye wall impacting here at Pinellas County beaches. We've had wind gusts to 90 down at Sarasota, and just recently 76. That's hurricane force at the nearby St. Pete Airport. Also, St. Pete's had about 9 inches of rain so far today. It's really raining hard and blowing hard. But the good news tonight, though, for some of us, is the track of Milton. It was moving northeast. Now it's jogging in. It's coming right in, but it's coming in south of Tampa Bay. What does that mean for us here on these beaches? A lower storm surge. No way we're going to hit 8 to 12 feet because right now the winds are still blowing offshore. So the water hasn't come up. Eventually, once the center of Milton clears the Tampa St. Pete metro area, we'll get the winds from the south and southwest, and that will bring in some surge. This is also likely going to lower those surge numbers in Tampa Bay, which are also forecast at 8 to 12 feet. The water, though, is coming up south of here, down towards Sarasota County beaches and down towards Fort Myers and Naples. The eye comes on shore, we get landfall, and then we have to worry overnight again about more tornadoes. We've had some destructive tornadoes in the eastern part of the state. There's a watch till 9 eastern, but they will extend that watch overnight for those areas. And then it moves across Orlando and over towards Daytona Beach overnight. We're going to have more wind, more power outages, and more tornadoes. So far here in Pinellas County, well, power just went out down here, but we've got power around us on. Laura, the power outages here, last time I checked, were just under 10% in Pinellas County, so not too bad so far. But we still have another 3 or 4 hours of this really sporty wind to deal with, and a lot of rainfall. And some of these totals are going to be easily 12 to 15 inches, and that's going to bring in some flash flooding. So a long way to go, but a bit of a positive note tonight on that track, which is a more positive one for Tampa Bay, but not as good for areas south of Tampa down the coast into southwest Florida.
All right, Mike, please be careful out there. We see the debris in the background. It's so dangerous. No one can be out in this storm, and Mike shouldn't even be out in this storm, but he's a professional.
Robert, it's an ominous sound. Thanks so much. Let's go over to Fox Weather's Mike Seidel in Madeira Beach. Mike.
Hey, Jesse, the winds here cranking out at hurricane force wind gust. Down in Sarasota, we've had gusts to 90. Nearby St. Pete has gusted just about 80 miles an hour. But the wind so far here in Pinellas County the wind is still blowing out to the Gulf, out to the east, which is a good thing. And another good thing tonight is the track of Milton. As it's about to make landfall, it's going to go in south of Tampa Bay. That's going to lower those surge numbers for Tampa Bay, and here in Pinellas County, it's going to increase the surge numbers, or the forecast will verify down through the beaches of Manatee, Sarasota County. We've already had a surge of 5 to 6 feet in parts of the Fort Myers area. So south of here, those numbers will verify, but there's no way we're going to get 8 to 12 feet here. Nobody's complaining. Eventually, as the center of Milton clears the Tampa St. Pete area, the winds will come back around from the west and southwest and start to push the water on shore. But by that point, there's just no way we can get those big numbers. No complaints here because there's so much debris in these neighborhoods from Helene. They did clean up Gulf Boulevard some yesterday, but literally miles and miles of streets in these neighborhoods on these barrier islands are piled up with debris from Helene. And more than happy not to get much of a surge, because we were really concerned even until a few hours ago, Jesse, that the surge combined with the wind, the surge would start to float the debris and the wind would start to blow it around, and then tomorrow morning we'd wake up with debris all over the place and they'd have to bring in the bulldozers. Right now, we're looking better in the areas in Pinellas County, Hillsborough County, and north because of the track of Milton as it starts to move right on shore now. The edge of the eye wall is on shore, but you got to get the center on shore before we have an official landfall called by the National Hurricane Center. Rainfall has been prolific already here in the St. Pete area, pushing 10 inches of rain. It's been raining at 1 to 2 inches an hour since about dinner time. And the wind so far has blown around a few things. Some of these plastic highway markers, they've blown around. But other than that, just some cardboard. We haven't seen a lot of things blowing around at this point. By the way, power outages in the state of Florida, Jesse, now just over 500,000 statewide. Here in Pinellas County, the number has jumped up. We were at about just under 10%, now 16% of Pinellas County. That includes Clearwater Beach and St. Pete, and where we are in Madeira Beach, 16% of customers are out. We're holding our power here in this area. We'll see how long that lasts. We've got another few hours, though, of these really sporty winds until about midnight. Then things should really begin to ease off, but the impacts will be moving east along the I-4 corridor. Orlando under a rare hurricane warning. The last one they had was Charlie back in 2013, and that was the first one in 40 years. And then we're also concerned with the East Coast beaches. Also, that tornado threat continues. The tornado watch till 9 for most of the peninsula, Jesse. They will extend that. That's a guarantee from the Storm Prediction Center. So be on the lookout again for quick spin-ups. And that's where we stand right now, waiting for the official landfall and to see how it plays out on those gauges in Tampa Bay and on the beaches here in Pinellas County. But the bottom line, it does look better at this hour.
Well, I mean, if that's better looking, I can't imagine what worse would look like. You've done this, Mike, not your first time. I mean, you're a hurricane guy. Where does this rank so far?
You know, I wouldn't put it yet in the top 10. You know, I've been through some pretty feisty ones. Ian 2 years ago, I was on the eye wall there at the Fort Myers Beach Causeway for hours. It was like a buzzsaw. I've been in Katrina. I've been in Floyd. You know, it's not a top 10 yet. Certainly from standing out here, and certainly from what may happen overnight. But it's certainly pretty feisty, and it's going to come in. You know, likely as a major hurricane. It's down to 120. But still a lot of impact for many, many people. But now it looks like the worst possible scenario in Tampa Bay is not going to happen. And we're thankful for that tonight.
Let's go back to Fox Weather's Mike Seidel in Madeira Beach. Mike.
Yeah, the unrelenting wind and rain continues here, Jesse. We're still gusting anywhere between 70 and 90 miles an hour. We're on the north side of the eye wall. The center, as Jesse mentioned, made landfall Milton at 8:30 Eastern at Siesta Key. That's just down to our south. You get into Manatee and Sarasota counties, and from there south is where you're having these surge issues, because as the center goes in, the winds are still blowing offshore because we're on the north side, so the winds are coming around like this, and we still have an east wind for the most part, blowing the water into the Gulf. So the Gulf isn't going to come in for now. It's going to be a while. Once the center does track in and get past the Tampa-St. Pete area, the circulation will start to wrap the water back in, and we will get some surge. But the 8 to 12 foot numbers that were forecast earlier for the Tampa Bay area here in the Pinellas County beaches, that's not going to verify. Nobody's complaining. What is increasing are the power outages. Last check, Jesse, 675,000 Floridians without power. And that's not only here, over on the eastern part of the state where we've had tornadoes and strong winds earlier today, and that tornado watch till 9 will be extended. Here in Pinellas County, we have lost more power. When I talked to you about a half an hour ago, Jesse, it was 16%. Now 24% of customers in Pinellas County are without power. So that's going to continue going up and will continue to increase inland, because Milton's basically going to track along Interstate 4 into Orlando. Do we get a gust like we did from Charlie in 2013? We'll find out. And also over towards Daytona, and also those beaches around Melbourne. All that area prone for strong winds, heavy rains, and the risk of tornadoes as we get into the early hours of Thursday morning. Our weather here will get better. Certainly by about midnight or so, we'll be out of the strongest winds, and the rain will come to a quick end on the backside of Hurricane Milton.
We keep hearing about these tornadoes. I'm unfamiliar with the tornado factor during a hurricane. How does the hurricane give birth to a tornado?
Well, what happens in these outer rain bands, not so much near the center, but in the outer rain bands, you've got a lot of low-level wind shear. You've got low-level winds, and they're increasing, and you get the spin-ups. And it's not unusual to get spin-ups and weak tornadoes with hurricanes. EF zeros and ones, but we're getting some very strong rotation. And the reason being is this is not a completely tropical system. We had this cold front come down and the jet stream is digging down, and this jet stream thankfully is shearing the storm, and that's why it dropped from a Cat 5 to a Cat 3, and the winds came down from 180 now to around 120. So we've got this jet stream energy that we talk about in the springtime with tornadoes in the plains and the deep south. So we're getting some of that extra oomph from the jet stream aloft, mixing again with the low-level winds, different directions, northwest wind aloft, and a southwest or southeast wind below, so you get the rotation, and that's how you get the tornadoes. But this time around, this is unusual. Another unusual thing about Milton, Jesse, is the intensity of the twisters we're seeing. And I think I heard earlier today the Tampa and Miami Weather Service offices put out more tornado warnings today so far than they've done on record. I believe that's the stat I heard earlier. So it's been a very busy day here in Tampa, not only from the severe weather threat, but also the Milton threat.
All right, Seidel, thank you so much. Keep us posted
tonight. All right, joining us now from Madeira Beach in Florida, Mike Seidel is with us. Mike, what's going on there tonight?
Hey, Sean, more of the same here. We've had gusty winds. Nearby St. Pete is gusted 89. But as Brian mentioned, the worst right now in the Tampa area, they're taking that northern eye wall, which we took earlier, and I checked the Tampa St. Pete airport just a few minutes ago, and they've now gusted 82 miles an hour. What does that mean? That means more power is going to go out. Right now, across the state of Florida, just over 800,000 customers. So that's easily more than 1 million people without power. Here in Pinellas County, last time I checked, about 25% of customers are without power. You can see behind me, we still have power here at Madeira Beach. The big concern here, Sean, was all the debris all over the place, all the neighborhoods just piled high. There was not enough time to get it out of here. Helene hit, it'll be 2 weeks ago tomorrow, so not enough time to get it out of here. It's all sitting around. The concern earlier was a big storm surge along with 100-mile-an-hour wind gust. Well, the storm surge, the big surge, is not going to materialize, as Brian mentioned, because the center is going to our south. That's a saving grace. I was envisioning waking up tomorrow morning and seeing debris everywhere because it floated or blew around the area, but that's just not going to happen. Thankfully, that's a good thing. On the other side of the coin, we've already had 10 inches of rain, and we've got another 3 or 4 hours of very heavy rainfall at 1 to 2 inches an hour. We've got an additional flash flood warning for this area. That goes until 10:30 Eastern tonight. There may be more flash flood warnings, and that's going to be the case right along that I-4 corridor. Tornado watch extended, just expired, but they've put out a new tornado watch for the overnight hours for a good deal of the Florida Peninsula. So, Sean, from the storm surge perspective here on the Pinellas County beaches, a much better outcome than expected even 4 or 5 hours ago. But we still have a lot of wind and a lot of rain and a lot more power to go out here in the Sunshine State tonight. And our concern, too, is that increasing surge to our south from Sarasota County south down to Lee and Collier County in southwest Florida. Sean?
Yeah, and Mike, our thoughts go out to the people in Naples, Florida. I have a lot of friends there and a lot of friends in Fort Myers and Sarasota. They're going to get hit harder. We originally thought it was going to be Tampa. All right, Mike.
All right, so St. Lucie is on the eastern side. From the western side, Madeira Beach, Mike Seidel is still feeling the wrath of Milton. Want to get to Mike now live and get the update on the conditions there. Mike, good evening to you. What are you seeing? What are you feeling?
Good evening, Bill. Well, we've come into a safer area. There's still wind, and it's really ripping through under the hotel here, our safe place. And I don't know if you can hear it, but things are just battering, and it's a very loud and noisy night. And what brought us back here off the street where we were talking earlier, see that pile of debris out there? That's part of the building for the roof. There's a rooftop deck up. Whoa, there goes part of the fence out into the road. That's part of the rooftop deck. There's a bar up there. There's a pool. It's a nice place. Not tonight, though. And remember, winds increase with height. So we've already had reported wind gusts south of here of 105 miles an hour. And so the winds up there may be even higher, and they're still howling. Rainfall, too, has been an issue. There's a flood warning out for this area, and a flash flood emergency was issued, and that goes till 2:30 for parts of Hillsborough County and here in also Pinellas County, especially the St. Pete area. One area over there has had 14 inches of rain so far today, and they've had over 7 inches in 1 hour. So that's why there's that flash flood emergency. No reports of any homes or rescues from homes at this point. Of course, this is not a night. Many emergency officials have been pulled off the roadways for safety reasons. So the wind still howls here. We're still on the back edge. We're on the northwest part of the eye wall, but this northern eye wall has been vicious with winds 80, 90 plus miles an hour at the Tampa airport. Power continues to go out. We're now about 60% of customers here in Pinellas County without power. And I'm just, can we spin around here? Let's see if we can spin around and show you this, because this is really phenomenal.
Hey, Linda.
The wind and the rain and the debris just blowing through here. You can hear, whoa, you can hear things crashing. There goes part of the fence blowing through the shot. I think you may have seen that, Bill.
Mike, if you need to get cover, go ahead and do it. You know, the governor's been warning us for days that there was so much debris from the last storm, they didn't get it cleared off enough, and they were worried about flying projectiles. Is that what you're seeing there, or is this all new and different?
No, this is new and different. There's a fence on the back side of the lower level here, the parking garage. That's why we're here, because we can put our cars up at 20 feet, and now that the surge is a non-issue here, that's good. But the fact of the matter is, this is a fence. It's like a vinyl fence. It's not metal. And I think it got some damage from the lean, but there's nothing left except the post. And it's all been blowing out into the road, and that's what you saw fly by. So these are pieces of vinyl fencing blowing by. It's not metal fencing. And again, debris around the area. And all the debris, by the way, that's still sitting in all the neighborhoods. Well, fortunately, without the surge, it's not going to float anywhere, but I'm sure some of that has been picked up and blown around by these wind gusts pushing 100 miles an hour. So certainly the high point tonight, as far as promising news, is the storm went into our south, and that kept the surge away from the beaches, and it's going to keep the surge way down if there's anything, because this wind now is moving north out of Tampa, so that's going to really blow the water out of Tampa Bay towards the Gulf. In fact, we checked the gauge at Clearwater Beach, and the tide is coming in, but the water is 2 feet below where it should be. So that's a good sign from the surge perspective. It's still a lot of wind tonight, and this is all heading across the I-4 corridor. It's going to knock out even more power as we go through the overnight hours.
All right, you find a good concrete wall and stay safe next to it, okay, Mike? Talk to you a bit later. Mike Seidel has been covering storms for decades. Thank you for that. He's in Madeira.
Meantime, let's bring in Fox weather meteorologist Mike Seidel, who is live in Madeira Beach, Florida, where the storm is already leaving its mark. Mike, what do you know?
What I can tell you, though, is the winds are now finally beginning to back off. We've had wind gusts over 100 miles an hour in Sarasota, St. Petersburg, right? And then down in Venice, the wind peaked at 109 miles an hour. Also, the heavy rainfall around St. Petersburg, one of the general aviation airports, now up to 18 inches of rain. And all this rain and wind is heading right across the I-4 corridor. The reason I'm not on the street anymore, Trace, is because of what came down about 2 hours ago. Part of the, I believe, the rooftop restaurant bar pool area, that's over there. It's aluminum, corrugated aluminum. It's nothing, extremely heavy. It doesn't matter. If it hit me up the side of the head, I wouldn't be here. And across the area, a lot of styrofoam and other minor pieces of debris. We also had a fence in the back, which survived to lean. It didn't survive Milton tonight. Those wind gusts pushing 100 miles an hour just tore it apart, and pieces flew through here. The other thing I want to talk about, because we talked about this so much this morning and over the past couple of days, is the debris around the area. Now, this debris pile has been here. That's from Helene. Most of that's from the post office next door. A lot of this did not get cleaned up, and the concern was, even into around dinner time, that we were going to have this surge, which was forecast 8 to 12 feet, was going to float everything around and redeposit it, plus these winds would turn things into projectiles. Well, thankfully for this part of the state, the storm went in south of Tampa Bay, so the surge did not really take place. The Weather Service at 11 p.m. has knocked back the surge forecast for Tampa Bay and here at the Pinellas County beaches to 3 to 5 feet. I don't even know if we'll get that much. So thankfully, we didn't get the surge. We've got the wind. We've got 1.6 million customers without power in Florida, and about 2/3 of those of customers here in Pinellas County are out. So we've got some good news, but still a big hit here on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and the horrible tragedy over on the East Coast from tornadoes earlier today with the multiple casualties.
And if I'm not mistaken, Mike, when you look at all of that debris that's piled up, that debris, when you talk about all this tornadic activity that hit Florida today, that debris can make those tornadoes extraordinarily dangerous, right?
Yes, fortunately where the tornadoes hit today, there was no debris. They were all over on the east coast of Florida that didn't deal with Helene. Okay. But back here, these winds did pick up some of the debris, and it was flying around earlier. But thankfully, we didn't get the surge. Tampa really lucked out on the surge, because that was really, yesterday, remember, 10 to 15 feet? That would have been just an unmitigated disaster. But we've lucked out, although down the coast, they've had higher numbers than expected. Down from Sarasota all the way to Fort Myers, some of those surge values will end up over 10 feet as the water continues to come up.
And lastly, Mike, I just want to get your take on this. I know you've done this for a long time, but going into this, last night, we were considering this as a water event. We look at the hurricanes as a wind event or a water event or both. We really looked at this as a water event with that 15-foot predicted storm surge going into Tampa Bay. This turned out to be a wind event, right? This turned out to be a major wind event, and still is, as it makes its way across the state.
Wind and also rain. There's a lot of flash flood warnings up. And like I mentioned, we've had 1.5 feet in parts of Hillsborough County. So some areas are still going to get 5, 10, 15 inches of rain as it crosses the state, what's left of the eye wall, right along that I-4 corridor. And also between Daytona and Jacksonville, those areas, they're going to get the wind from the northeast as the hurricane goes off the coast tomorrow morning. So we're going to have some surge issues there on the northeast coast of Florida. But yeah, you're right. Basically, Tampa, wind and rain, not surge, thankfully.
Yeah, it really is. It's a good sign in one part of the state, bad sign in some others. Mike Seidel.